Hi everybody, welcome to the dungeon. This is Lampworking 101.22. How are we going to unwonk that wonky bead? I have a couple of different scenarios that I'm going to present to you, and then we will fix those in the torch. Okay, here we are. I guess I'm just gonna do this, I'm gonna talk while I do this. Okay, here we go. The color I'm gonna use is one of my new colors. It's called American Beauty. So let's give it a try. All right, let's just get this into a round, and then we'll mess with it. And notice I'm turning, I'm underhanded right now. This is kind of interesting to see where my hands are and what they're doing. And I'm just going back and forth on this bead. Bring it out of the flame, and then just begin to keep it turning. And what I'm doing is I'm looking at this top part to make sure it's not rising and falling. It looks great. Let's try to make it the little wonky. Everything happens in the flame, and it's all about how much you heat and where you heat. Here it is. Here's our off-center bead. It's like, okay, well now what? You know, I got more on one side than I do on the other, so I'm gonna try to just even it out right here, and that's not gonna happen. The only way to fix this is to reheat again, and that's what I call superheat. So you're gonna have to superheat anything that is off center, because you'll notice the tracks are wider on one side than they are on the other. So we need to superheat it so the tracks will follow the wide tracks will follow. Oops, let me get this hot again. The wide track will melt over the shorter or the thinner track. And this is how we do it. I'm just gonna start heating the whole thing up, kind of turning back and forth where the large part is to give that large part more heat. But the only way you're gonna move the bead in center is to heat the whole mass of glass. So what I'm doing here is I'm superheating to where, do you see how it's got that lag? That's called lag. So what we want to do is we want to get the lag of the glass to start lagging into a round again. And you do that by slowly turning. You don't want to turn too fast. I'm just very slowly turning my bead. As soon as I see that it's back on center again, I come out. And sometimes, you know, if you're an overhanded roller, you can roll like this and go right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand. So you know that your bead is staying in place. It's constantly turning. There's no time that it isn't not moving, because it only takes a second of not moving for the bead to fall. Let's go ahead and heat this up again. What if it's real bad? What if it's like this? Almost like a side to side. That looks horrible. See that? Best way to fix this is to find an edge and to gently pull that edge in. So at least you know where the edge is. And then start to heat the other side of the bead and work your way around to this edge side. And turn that mandrel back and forth so you're actually heating up the whole bit of glass. And when you're confident that all the glass is hot, stay in the very center of the torch and superheat it to where that lag starts, to where the glass is almost, it's out of control. And then once you get it back into that round, even if it's still moving a little strange, use your eyes to watch that very top part of the round to make sure it's not wavering up and down. Now, you can't always fix the very edge of a round bead, especially if you have a little bit coming off of the edge of it. But when that kind of stuff happens, I'm like, dude, you know, if you need a perfectly round bead, then you need to go to Michael's and get one. I mean, what I want to say before I put this in the oven is be happy with what you have. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it, no matter what. I hope it was wonky enough. And now we're going to just put this in the oven. Let's do this opaque with anything. Whoops. Okay, so now you see like what's going on under here is I have the wood is up high. Okay, because when I roll, I need this space here to roll on under, because I like to roll overhanded and then underhanded here. Okay, so this time, let's just quickly speed things up and get to where we need to be. I'm just going to make little sloppy rounds, you know, going up my mandrel. We don't have to make it that big. Let's just do 4 wraps. That's all we need. It's these 4 little wraps. Now let's go ahead and add some wraps on top of it. Let's just, you know, slop it on. Okay. All right, so in order to roll out, you don't want to ever roll out too hot. At least I don't like to roll out too hot. I like to give my bead a little bit of time to cool down before I roll. And also my hand is stable on this table because I'm shaky, so I'm able to very gently roll it out. My hand is also a guide too, but it's not perfect. You can roll out a perfect bead. It just takes a ton of practice. Now that I have this edge here, kind of where I want it, that's what I want to do to the rest of the bead. I want the rest of the bead to follow this edge. So let's heat up that side of the bead really hot. And then we'll use that cold side as a guide to push on. Okay, let's do something a little out of character. What if I heat this up and I just smash it down? Oh, it actually looks pretty good. Can I not make a bad bead? No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I make bad beads all the time. But this one is kind of crappy, and I want to like pull in the edge a little bit of both sides, because when you roll the edge, you'll notice that the ends will kind of puff, will kind of curl in, and that will give you some glass to push in on. And then see how I'm just heating this part, this one part? I'm going to use the cool end to roll out that one part, and I'm really watching that edge to make sure it doesn't mess itself up. Let's try the other edge. Let's try to fix that. We can fix it by a roll. What if it's just really off? Okay, so what if we have a really off-center bead? You don't like how anything's happening here. You can't fix it. You don't know what to do with the edges. Sometimes what I'll do for fixing edges is just to add a little bit more glass on the edges. Doesn't have to be a lot. Just a little bit. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's a pretty sloppy job. But now let's just heat in the center and just wiggle it back and forth. Try not to overheat the edges at this point, because really what you're trying to do is just melt those 2 rounds of glass. So then we can gently come over to the table, take your time, and then start to roll out. But you want to learn how to roll a long roll. Back and forth now. A long roll. Barrel-shaped beads are not the easiest to make. And here I have this barrel-shaped bead that's, again, it's off-center. So what am I going to do here? I'm going to add more. I'm going to add more glass. And I would do this until I got the shape I wanted, especially on the edges. And when I add my edge glass, it's actually, you know, it's right on the bead. So this time, let's do one edge at a time. We'll let this edge be our guide. Okay, so I got more glass on that edge. See how it's puffed up? And that extra glass should give you, well, let's just gently roll it out. And there will be a moment where you see that it's not, Some people can easily roll out the edges. Gentle when you do this, when you roll out the edges, that you need to make a decent edge. Just by turning and using their little paddle, but I'm so shaky that it doesn't work for me. Heat. It takes time to refine those shapes. Okay, but I like the way this edge is looking right here. I like that. So I finally got to a decent point on this side. Now let's work on the other side. So I'll turn this around. For some reason I enjoy working on the rolling on the left side of my torch. So I pull everything over, so more of my marving pads on this side of my torch than on this side, so I can easily roll without getting the flame involved. Alright, so let's make this edge nice and even. Even it out. We're happy with that one end, so don't go back and mess it up. But the thing is, if you do, you know you have enough glass there, you know, to make it look nice. Okay, I'm just going to add a little bit of glass, a little wrap to this end. Make sure I heat up the other end just enough to keep it warm and not breaking. And then we're going to superheat this end. And as soon as you see that edge push out, it'll push out more than you want it to, almost always. Then come back and just pull in just a little tiny bit, those little edges. And then you'll see a slight flare at the end, and just a very gentle heat. You almost don't even need to heat it, you know, but maybe a couple seconds. Because right now you're just working on the outside. You're not trying to heat the whole bead up and shape the whole thing. You're just trying to refine the shape, which is very, you know, it's, what am I trying to say as I'm working away? Everything happens so fast, but you really don't have to overheat it. I think a lot of people just overheat their beads and then they have a hard time controlling it as it cools down. So you need to lower that temperature, but then sometimes you have to have that super massive heat in order to fix the problem. And if the problem is that your bead is off center, it's the easiest thing to fix. All you need is major superheat and let that bead start to kind of like flow over itself. Let that lag, you know, hit in, set in. But you have to be prepared for the roll that you're gonna have to be doing to keep that bead perfectly on center. Anyway, let's put this away real quick. Okay, so there's like the barrel shaped bead and the round bead there. The most important takeaway here is going to be the superheating that happens, because when you superheat that glass, the whole mass of glass will heat up, allowing you to completely round it out. Glass wants to go where it's hottest. So the more you superheat a bead, it's going to go back into a round. But if you're not prepared, for the rolling, left, right, 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 or the underhanded roll like I like to do, and just have my hands just gently go back and forth, and watching the top of that round bead, making sure that it doesn't waver. Those are the best ways that I know how to fix like the edge of a barrel shaped bead, or how to make a wonky round bead rounder. Sometimes you need to add a little bit more glass as well, because you just don't have enough to round it out and your edges start pulling in. And on one last note, sometimes it's okay if it's slightly off center. Nobody's gonna take your bead and look at it on their bracelet or their necklace and go, you know what, you were just slightly off center on this one. Nobody's gonna say that, but it's a very personal thing, you know, and that's what matters. Try not to be too rough on yourself when it comes to, my beads are off center, they're wonky, what do I do to fix them? Maybe some of these techniques will help you to ease your anxiety or your frustration, really, with getting beads on center and in the round again. Practice, practice, practice. That's what it's all about. Love of the material. That's what keeps us all lampworking, even if we're not good at it. But you can be good at it. Just take your time, practice, practice, practice. Watch videos, get lost in it. It's good. It's good to get lost in your artwork. Anyway, I've said too much. Thanks for watching, you guys. I hope some of these tips helped, and we will see you next time on another episode. Bye.